hands on anybody.
Yes, sir.
Once you're under arrest, I'm ready to pull out.
Yes, sir. Okay.
That's Nick Ayers, Vice President Mike Pence's Chief of Staff, former Executive Director of the Republican Governors Association, and according to Omarosa, the author of the New York Times anonymous op-ed claiming to be the resistance inside the Trump administration.
Who do you think wrote the op-ed?
I think it's somebody out of Pence's office, and I suspect it might be Nick Ayers.
Ayers was born in 1982 in Cobb County, Georgia, to parents who voted for Bill Clinton and Ross Perot. Growing up, Ayers, in his own words, was high on Bill Clinton and Georgia's Democratic Governor, Zell Miller. In high school, Ayers said he was the trustworthy member in his group of friends who ran on the edge of the line. He was the guy who would organize huge drinking parties but act as the designated driver. I would say, look, we have to be careful here. We can't let people find out. By 2000, when Ayers enrolled in Kennesaw State University, his Democratic roots had worn off. He spent most of his time chairing the university's college Republicans. In 2001, he organized a rally in Athens, Georgia, where he met then gubernatorial candidate and now Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue. After befriending him, Ayers, a 19-year-old freshman, left Kennesaw State University for the campaign trail. Ayers served as Perdue's bodyman during his long-shot run for governor of Georgia, which he ended up winning in 2002, becoming the state's first Republican governor since 1872. When Ayers was 22, Perdue tapped him to lead his re-election effort as campaign manager. But things got weird when Perdue also tapped Ayers to become part of his family. When Perdue found out Ayers was dating a girl from the coastal elite state of New York, he said, "You're crazy. You've got to date a Southern girl." So Perdue set Ayers up with his second cousin. Ayers was hesitant at first, but she was kind of persistent. So they married in 2005. Ayers voluntarily told the Washington Post that he was so consumed with his workload that he and his wife Jamie didn't really have sex for the first 3 years of their marriage.
2006 was an awful year.
It was no doubt a stressful time for Ayers, and things weren't about to get easier. In 2006, as Perdue's campaign manager, less than 2 weeks before the election, Ayers was pulled over for drinking and driving. An officer reportedly caught him weaving in and out of lanes doing 50 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone.
I'm not asking nor expecting you to change anything that you're doing. I don't even expect a comment from you. I just want you to say that I'm a huge fan of the State Patrol, have been for the last 5 years.
Ayers admitted to drinking a strong Jack and Coke, but didn't see anything wrong with that.
I don't think I've done anything wrong, but I know they'd love to make an issue out of it.
Then, in a last-ditch effort, Ayers tried convincing the officer that he should be out arresting people that aren't him.
Well, I'm sorry for blowing your time tonight. I really am. I know you guys have a big job to do and don't need to waste it on chuckleheads like me.
But unfortunately for the self-diagnosed chucklehead, the officer deemed drinking and driving dangerous and decided not to let him off the hook. Ayers refused to take a breathalyzer, which automatically results in arrest in Georgia. 6 months later, after Perdue won his re-election, the charges against Ayers were reduced to reckless driving. In 2006, Perdue was appointed chairman of the Republican Governors Association, where he brought his old pal and newly minted family member on for the ride. Ayers became the executive director of the association. He was the youngest ever to lead it, and he was able to wrangle 6- and 7-figure donations from some of the biggest donors on the right, the New York Times notes. Before Ayers arrived, the budget for the 05-06 election cycle was $43 million. At the end of 2010, the budget was almost 3 times that. In 2011, he decided to pack up in a strange move. Instead of working in the heart of a campaign, he left the RGA for a media company. He accepted a partnership at an ad-buying firm called Target Enterprises. Target worked on behalf of campaigns, buying ad time through the campaign budget and keeping a fee. Target worked as a media buyer on most of the campaigns Ayers worked on since he joined the firm in 2011. CNN notes, the arrangement allowed Ayers to earn a consultant's salary while also influencing campaign spending in a way that benefited him financially. A practice that is not illegal but has raised consternation among fellow consultants. But just a few weeks into his time at Target, Ayers was on the move again. He announced in an email he had a calling to utilize the talents God had given him by working in the 2012 presidential campaign of Tim Pawlenty, the guy who once said, based on results, I'm the most pro-life candidate. And
sheriffs and the law enforcement community in Minnesota were opposed to legalizing marijuana in Minnesota, and I opposed it as well.
In the email, Ayers explained how excited he was to join Pawlenty's campaign. Over the past 6 months, I have prayed deeply about my purpose in life and how to best utilize the talents God has given me. I wanted my decision to be wholly about how to best serve Him, not what was most politically or financially expedient for my family and me. The higher purpose God reportedly called Ayers to was a losing campaign. After just 3 months, Pawlenty's campaign ended before the primaries even began.
Look, I'm working for a candidate who has never been chosen to win any election he's ever been in his life.
The campaign racked up nearly $500,000 in debt, and Nick Ayers was deemed the most hated campaign operative in America by the Tucker Carlson-founded conservative site, The Daily Caller. It was around this time the drunk driving video surfaced. But in 2015, after hitting rock bottom, Ayers, depending on how you look at it, was on the rise. He was hired to work on Mike Pence's gubernatorial re-election campaign as a general consultant. A source close to Pence told HuffPost that Ayers is very religious, and Mike liked that about him. Everyone seemingly liked Ayers except for Pence's campaign pollster and former stand-up comedian, Kellyanne Conway.
New survey's out. It's not ours, but I wish it were, because a new survey says that 70% of men think about sex all of the time. The other 30% are lying.
CNN notes that Ayers, according to the 3 people familiar with the campaign, was critical of Conway's polling and wanted her fired. It's unclear if he had any notes on her stand-up set. 2 years later, when the White House was considering Ayers for Pence's chief of staff, Conway reportedly tried to block Ayers from getting the gig. According to 2 sources, Kellyanne erupted at Steve Bannon, who supported the hire. Conway was no match for Bannon, and the closest allies in Trump's orbit, his family, Ivanka and Jared Kushner, both reportedly advocated for Ayers to join the White House. So he did. Ayers was hired in June of 2017. Then Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci explained his hiring. Nick's there to protect the vice president because the vice president can't believe what the is going on. Ayers emerged as the top contender for chief of staff. He and the president reportedly seriously discussed the job, but when the president offered him the gig, Ayers didn't want it. He tweeted from his account where a picture of a Ford F-150 is his cover photo. "Thank you at Real Donald Trump, at VP, and my great colleagues for the honor to serve our nation at the White House. I will be departing at the end of the year, but will work with the #MAGA team to advance the cause, #Georgia." According to a CNN report, Trump was super pissed Ayers didn't take the role. Ayers will reportedly instead head up a pro-Trump Super PAC for the 2020 campaign. At one point, Ayers reportedly was gearing up to position Pence for a presidential run in 2020. An administration official told Vanity Fair, "Everybody knows Nick Ayers is not loyal to the president." Maybe Omarosa's right.
I signed up with a very serious person who I believe can unite the party and win, and that's what I'm going to be focused on, not giving advice to whether or not the Don should run.
All right,
I will think this, it will probably help our ratings, our debate ratings, if he'll do it.
All right, well, Nick Ayers.
Well, that's one way of putting it.